Now you've actually reached a very good stage in your business. You're hitting 7-figure years. But the impressive thing that you've done is you've now been able to maintain it and step away.
I've started so many different businesses and failed at them. I mean, even in the past 3 or 4 years. One thing I realized from all these kind of things that I tried to start is that you just need to focus your attention on one business, one thing. Until you've got a business which is running itself, like my business is right now, you can't dedicate time to trying to build 5 or 6 different businesses.
Everything that leads to the success that you have now comes from the fact that you had an obstacle in the past. So if you're currently sitting in a position or a place where your life sucks and you hate your life and you're in a bad family, in a bad situation, you're actually very privileged in a fucked up kind of way. What I see that as in my eyes is God's giving you a chance to prove yourself.
You're putting your reputation on the line, your name on the line, your face on the internet, but you're going to get naturally hate for the polarity that you have.
I'll continue to be me and I'll make mistakes along the way. I'll say things I'm not meant to say. People are afraid to fail. People are afraid to just say one thing bad and get cancelled. I don't mind.
Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an episode. I'm joined with Alex, the co-host, myself Wakar, and I'm here with 2 good friends of ours. On my right, Jack Hopkins. Some of you may know him as CEO of Testosterone, womanizer, men of men, and the list goes on. And then we have a good friend of his that we've recently met, Dario. Very interesting story that Dario has with growing his business and now moving out to Thailand, and a business that you wouldn't expect. So I'm interested to jump into that. So guys, thank you for joining us
Thank you.
today. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us, bro.
It's exciting times. So yeah, I wanted to start today with starting with your journeys of childhood, because I think it's important to understand what makes you you and what kind of things you've experienced in your childhood to have the certain beliefs, the characteristics, the ethics you have. And a lot of these things can kind of stems in interesting ways. For example, if you have a struggling household, it can make you kind of a more resilient person, or it can make you more of a degenerate. So for example, I want to understand what kind of makes you you. So I'll start with you on the right, Jack. What kind of upbringing did you have in school, for example, where you bullied now? Or because now I see you're very you're doing Muay Thai, you're a fighter, you're fit. Did you have any issues in school, or just your childhood?
I had a very good childhood. I had a very interesting childhood as well. Got a few stories, but basically, I'm actually an extroverted introvert. So a lot of people, they meet me and they say I've got crazy energy and stuff, and I wasn't always like this. I was basically born an introvert. I was a shy kid, but my dad actually trained me to be a stud from a young age. So when I was younger, we moved to the United States, when I was about 9 years old. We moved there for 3 years. Before that, I can't really remember anything anyway. Before 9 years old, I'm like, I don't know what was going on. Just playing with action men, superheroes and shit. But then we got to the States, and that was the first time in my life I'd had to go and meet new people. I was out of my comfort zone. And we had to go and visit schools in Atlanta. We had to go around Atlanta to try and find schools for me and my brothers to go to. And when we were at Atlanta, I used to throw up in the car every time before going in a new school. I couldn't say hello to anyone. I was just really nervous kid, really nervous and shy. And my dad obviously saw that was going to be a big problem if he let that slide. So he never let that slide. And basically what I had to do is we would go to a lot of business meetings for his work, but they were like events, country club events, things like that. And I'd have to go and speak to 3 or 4 people when I was there. I'd have to go ask them their name, find out what job they did, who their wife was, ask them different questions and stuff, and then I'd have to go report back to my dad. And so by doing that was just one of the things we did. And I started to come out of my shell a little bit. And then because I was an English kid in America, I got noticed for TV acting. I got noticed for a school show. And I went to an audition for a school show, and I got the lead part, and I said, no, I'm not doing it. I didn't want to do it. I felt sick. I just didn't want to do it at all. And my parents spoke to me. They were very kind to me, and they got me to do this show. So I did that, and then I got seen for TV. I had to do a couple commercials, and that was the first time I ever got paid for doing acting work. And that was the first time I'd ever earned money.
At what age?
That was about 10 years old.
Hustler.
So I got $1,000.
That's quite a lot.
I did one for internet. There's actually an
an
advert on YouTube. I'll show you guys at some point. It's fucking funny.
You're not showing me this yet.
I've got to show you this, but it's quite embarrassing for me because I was literally a complete retard. So
What were you
I was promoting internet security software, and it's like a 9-minute video.
What are you doing exactly? What are you doing in the?
I had to do loads of stuff. I had to pretend I was playing a video game on the computer. pretend I was getting killed and that someone had hacked into my computer and shut down my game, and then I had to freak out. I had to ride down the stairs on a mattress and run into my sister. There was a girl that played my sister in this thing. I had to ride down the stairs on a mattress, hit my sister, and she was filming me on a laptop. And when I hit her, we broke the laptop. So they were like, oh, you're insured on your like laptops and all your securities and stuff. Okay. But the main point of that story is I got $1,000, and then my mum let me buy an iPad. I remember she let me buy an iPad with that money, and I was like, whoa, this is fucking awesome. I was like, I actually got $1,000 for doing something. That got into my head. And from that moment, I thought the only way you could earn good money is if you became an actor. That was the sort of the path for me at that point. So I did a lot of shows. I did a lot of like, people don't know this about me, I did a lot of singing and dancing.
Bro, you got to show us the videos.
I've got a lot of videos. I got a lot of clips of this stuff.
I just met you recently, so I don't see yourself as a singer or something like that.
So I've done a lot of that. My mum's a dance instructor, and my dad's a musician. So that's quite interesting. Just part-time musician, not full-time. He was very good. So that was sort of my childhood. I ended up becoming this extroverted guy, and still feeling quite, and I still do now. And Dario, you'll know this. Like I can't meet people every day and have conversations with people all day. I need time to rest and recover and be away from people. So I still am introverted, but that was probably one of the key things that happened in my childhood with my dad especially, that pushed me on to somebody who was no longer shy. And I realized very quickly that everything good that you feel in life comes on the other side of what you're scared of. Because I remember thinking before all these shows or before going and doing a commercial or anything good that happened to me, I would always feel sick to my stomach. I'd feel terrible. I'd have awful nerves. I just didn't want to do it. But if you push through and you do that thing, you get this amazing high. So I ended up getting very addicted to that high at a young age. And I'll still probably chase that now. And that's the same when you fight. It's all these things you're scared of. Whenever you do them, you get unlimited power after you've done those things. And I come back to the UK. Went through school. I was a bit different in school.
What age was that when you came back?
I came back at 12.
Okay.
So in time for like high school in the UK. And when I came back, I was obviously a different kid because I was this singing, dancing kid. I remember the first day of my high school, I wanted to sing a song for everybody in the year. So
that was your decision?
That was my personal decision.
Because get bullied.
Because in my head, I was like, that's what I'm good at. In America, they love that shit, bro. Like, it's not like the UK.
Yeah.
In America, you do something like that, and the girls lose their shit. You're the cool guy. So I was like,
showmans.
yeah. So I sang Bruno Mars, the song "Grenade." I'll catch a grenade for you by Bruno Mars. I sang that for my whole year on my first day of school.
Oh, yeah.
So that sort of set off my high school experience in the UK because that was not a good idea. Kids in the UK, they don't like that stuff.
In England, you get bullied for literally anything.
Yeah.
The colour of your tie to eating a banana, like anything.
And they're like, this kid's fucking way too confident. We need to bring him down a peg or two. So that was that started my school career. But I still ended up making good friends because I'd lived in the same place in the UK before I went. So luckily that I had some guys already that were on my team. So I wouldn't say I was particularly bullied in school because I've always had a decent group of friends around me. But I was certainly made fun of for a little while.
You know, it's interesting then. So if that kind of tough love from your father didn't come of, you know, be this extrovert, be confident, do you think you would have picked up the camera later in life and kind of been on this path you're on now of YouTube?
I don't think so at all. No, I think, it's actually, I can see it in there's another key part to this. I was never allowed video games. Yeah, I had a crazy imagination, but I was never allowed video games. So I spent a lot of my time making up my own stories and fucking dressing up as superheroes and going out in the garden and stuff. Whereas my brothers, they were 3 years and 6 years younger than me. And by the time my parents had sort of raised me, they were tired. They were like, fuck it, just let them have a PlayStation, like let them have a go on it, just so they'd like stop bothering us. And you see it in my brothers. I love my brothers, but they've just chosen totally different paths to me in life. And you can see that where that happens because they're probably not as outgoing or as confident. And I think it will happen for them later on in life. But for me, it happened very, very young. And the reason why is because I didn't really have anything else to do. And I was just pushed to go and do these things.
You know, the thing you said of, you know, being petrified or very nervous just to speak to a small group, I was exactly the same when I was a kid. I remember one thing specifically. So in English class, we had to do a presentation in year 11. And everybody in the class had to stand up in front of the rest of the class. And it was a boys' school, so you can imagine the environment of bullying and all of that kind of stuff. And I was so petrified of this 2-minute talk that I literally just went to the toilet and hid for the class. And everyone's like, where's Wakar? Where'd he go? Whatever. Bro, and I was just like, yeah, I had an interview in another school for sixth form. I just made up a story. I was so scared of this kind of stuff. Just even speaking like in front of 4 or 5 guys, I don't think I could have done it back then. And yeah, you break out of your shell, and either you kind of choose to do it yourself, or it looks like in your case, tough love. And I think now, especially with the kind of agendas we have, the far left and so forth, of kids can kind of decide however they want to be, whatever decisions they want to make. I do think, as your father did, it's very important to kind of instill these characteristics that they think are important for later in life. Because a 10-year-old, you would have stayed an introvert because you thought that's best for you. But as a kid, you're making decisions based on comfort and what's easy in the moment. But he put you through a bit of hardship, and it actually just set you on a different path.
And at the end of the day, it's raising kids. Like, the kids ain't there to be raising themselves. They're kids. They're like a blank slate. So you've got to be an adult and raise your children. You can't say, like, let the kids decide what they want to do. What do the kids know? I didn't know anything at that age. God knows what I would have done if I was left to my own devices. I'd have been at the strip club 10 years old.
With your $1,000.
Yeah.
With your thousand, yeah.
There's 3 of us here that went to British schools, and I think a lot of people underestimate just how intense a British school environment is. And you look at the American schools, I know I had experience in Italian schools, etc. as well. It's nothing like going to a school in the UK. It is literally ruthless, and I'm pretty sure you guys would agree in that aspect. And I remember going through school, and I had a very similar situation to Jack, actually. And strangely, that you said that you went to America. I was born in the UK, but my family moved me straight to Italy again as soon as I was born. So I actually grew up in Italy till around 3 years old. But even at that age, 3-4 years old, I still went to kind of the preschools, etc. in Italy. So I grew up learning Italian and English. And then when I went back to the UK, when my mum and dad split up, I was about 4 or 5 years old, went into the UK schools. I had the same thing. I didn't like to speak Italian to anyone. I had this thing with my mum where I wouldn't speak Italian at all because I was so afraid of people thinking I was Italian. And I went into this UK school, and I had to make friends straight away, and the same thing. And as I went through the childhood, I started in a private school. And then as I kind of left the private school, went to public school, I had that kind of thing about going from private school to public school, being Italian and being English as well, and things like that. So that kind of molded my situation in the whole aspect of changing school. So I can completely agree with what Jack's saying. You need to go out your comfort zone. And I had my dad, unfortunately, I never had much time to spend with my dad through my childhood. My mum and dad were split up. So my mum raised me and my sister completely on their own. And I really respect her for that. She instilled all the best morals into us both of us, and she literally sacrificed 20 years of her life to bring us up. But I'd never had that father figure around me on a daily basis to kind of instill these things. But I did have the chance to speak to him every now and then. We'd speak once or twice a week on the phone. We'd go on holiday, etc. And he still did the father part to me, to instill the morals and tell me how I should be. And I'm sure you can agree with Alex, in Mediterranean cultures, fathers are quite a large part of your life, and they're very open over in Italy and Spain and Mediterranean culture. So I had like the difference between a British culture, very closed, very like prim and proper kind of thing, and then had my Italian dad, which was like, very just all over the place, do what you want kind of thing. And I've been molded into that, and I think a lot of people can see that in my character. I've got the kind of the English side of me, but I've also got the Italian side of me where I can just do both sides. So how was your experience when you were growing up?
So first I wanted to ask you guys a question. So regarding all of this, I don't have experience when it comes into going into school in the UK because I was raised in Valencia, Spain, until I was 18, and then I went to the US to study in America for 4 years. But at least in Spain, sports play a big role in schools about your popularity. So if you're good at sports, you're gonna have more friends that you're not good at sports, especially football. So how were you guys when you were young when it comes into sports? That actually played a role, or in the UK it's not like that, or how does it work?
I think it's definitely like that. Yeah, 100%. Sports.
I'm a little bit younger than you. I was about 4 years. I'm 4 years younger than you. I don't know how old are you?
27.
27. 3 years younger than you. I'm 24. When I was getting in there, even sports was starting to get phased out. Like sports was not a big deal when I was in school. Like so many people were allowed to just skip sports, not do PE, not play for. Like our clubs never had anybody watch us. Like we'd go play football or rugby, we'd have no supporters, no nothing. Like sports was basically, and I think this has happened even more now. but it was like on its way out big time because I was always pretty good at sports. And
when I was in
didn't help
school, it
me.
was like that. We'd do like cross country, so we'd do like long runs, and that would be a weekly thing. So we did sports in phases. So it'd be like the term for hockey, then the term for cricket, then the term for football, and we had a cross country one. And obviously, when it's hard, like long distance running is hard. So there'll always be like 4 or 5 overweight kids, and they would be trailing behind, and the teachers knew that they're not going to complete it by the end of the lesson. So they actually tell them you can chill in the changing rooms. And I used to think that is ridiculous because, okay, they're 15 years old, okay, they're overweight at 15, but they've got their whole life ahead of them to correct that and kind of get into that shape. But as you said, the schooling system is pushing a different thing. I wanted to touch on the thing you said of, in English school at least, all you want to do is fit in. You just want to be normal. You don't want to stand out for anything, for the color of your hair to the what you're wearing. You just want to be normal. And I felt like I stood out because of my color of my skin. You probably felt because you went to a private school, Italian background, that's different. But then later in life, it's complete opposite in the sense of you want to stand out for something. You want to have independence or something unique about your character. You're quirky and fun. There's something that helps you excel. And I think that's very interesting. You start in one way, you want to end up in one way, and then that individuality has to come out, and that's usually through. I think in your late teens, you want to develop your character, and a lot of people don't. But I wanted to come back to this thing of your childhood because we've spoken a lot about this, and because he grew up in Spain, I guess it has its own things. But he grew up in the football environment, and when you're part of a sports team, obviously that man-to-man competitiveness brings out basically you were like an English kid.
Yeah. So basically, I have two things that when I was growing up. First of all, my dad is a very strict dad. But apart from that, I think I had 2 environments that maybe shifted me. I had a private school environment where I grew up, and then my best friends and my school, and all comes from that, where it comes to good education, but it's more like a chill school where like you get to see bullying things, but professors are very on top because there's not like 100 people in a class or 50 people per class. Like it's literally like we're 25 on one class of my age, and then 25 above, 25 below. So it's very difficult to see a lot of bullying and stuff. But then I got the football environment where I grew up, and it was a totally different story. Like it's not, as I would say, high class when it comes into money. I don't know how to say it correctly in English, but it's a completely different environment where these kids at 12, where I was sharing locker rooms, are more like animals. You get me? Like you arrive to the locker. You arrive to the locker room, and it's the jungle. So you have to survive. So I was, at that point, I was a kid coming from a private school. So just small things I remember from going to the training session, and I'm wearing just the uniform that I had to wear, So you arrive on the first day, of course they're gonna crack. They're like, who's this kid?
In a blazer.
On a blazer or this or that. But then you start to read these things, right? So I've always been very lucky socially. I'm very good socializing. So I will always, when I was young, I will identify who was the big leader on the thingy, and then became friends with him. Because if not, I was gonna get screwed 100%, because I'm not grown in these environments where people are actually, like literally it was fights every day. The locker room is, we're a team, but you arrive to the locker room and then someone slapped you and they're just waiting for a reaction. Or you're like entering the shower and then someone's peeing on you while the other one's putting like all the gel on your head, so you cannot take it out.
And that's your teammates.
That's your teammates. So you can get bullied. I can imagine you can already be relating of how you can see your face.
I remember, just when you were saying that story then, I remember being at a football camp when I was younger, maybe about 13 years old, and one of the older kids there told me to spray deodorants on my on my nutsack. And you don't want to do that. Don't spray deodorant on your own nutsack. I remember spraying it on my nutsack and being like, I just fucking lost my mind.
We'll get one of the guys that was wet from there. We'll put him in the cages of the thingies, and then when you get out, like the parents will be asking, "Hey, where's my kid? He's taking,
he's over there. He's naked in that cage.
He's taking a long time to get out, right? And everyone will be silent, no snitches. Now all will be silent. Boom, you get your back. And this is speaking about 9, 10, 12, and you just get out, get with your parents. You just leave silent until the parent goes inside and sees his kid on the cage. But the thing is, like, he needs to tell his parent, don't say anything, because if he says anything, he's gonna get bullied the whole season, and there's 5 months ahead. So he's like, so that's why I was speaking about the survival mode versus my private school. So what happened to me is that then I find it very funny, So I started to took these things into my school. So that was not funny at all. You know what I mean? So that's where I got like a big trouble for a long period of time until I started to grow up and be like, okay, I should not be doing these things. And then a lot of trouble with professors because I'll get things, could be like sexual things from one side that they're not expected on the other side. So it was like a mix of this. So this is kind of like my upbringing, at least until a certain age. Of course, when I was already 16, 17, I started to realize and then become more chill about certain things. And then I kept playing football, but then I went to America. But that's more or less my upbringing, like the two environments and difficult balance for a bit, but then actually got balance also because of the figure of my dad. He was always like, look, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. So they were very strict also when it comes into what things I should be doing and what things I shouldn't.
Did you do any sports in school?
I did do quite a few different sports, but I've got the tendency to like things that are more adrenaline based. So football was okay. I wasn't too great at football, to be honest. I didn't really play much football. Rugby, I enjoyed playing rugby, but I'd be the kid that would go and do all the other stuff outside of school. So my mum, I played roller hockey from like 11 years old till like 15. So I was like I do all the different stuff. So roller hockey was really good. I enjoyed it and it taught me a lot about teamwork, and I just enjoyed doing more higher end, higher energy sports compared to normal. And I didn't really get on with too many people in my secondary school when I kind of got into the higher, say around the ages of 13 to kind of 15. And that's what we were speaking about when I did another podcast. I was a bit of a gamer and I would just kind of like lock myself away at night and just play games all day. So I was more on the weekends. My mum would take me to different sports. I did swimming, different kind of things like that. So I kind of built that kind of teamwork, but I also had the gamer side of me, which was like making friends online and doing online sports as esports as such. So I was kind of really into my online gaming at that age. So I kind of built my confidence through that online, and then
I actually helped build confidence for the real world. You think?
Yeah, 100%. Spoke about it on one of my last podcasts with Cameron from Game Quitters, and I learned a lot from online gaming and translated that into business world. And it's to put it into a brief story. I used to play World of Warcraft, and on this online game there's a thing called the auction house. So there was a lot of different ways that you could make money in this game, and I would use techniques such as like buying up the quantity, like buying up the supply, reselling at a certain time, and that's just basically I translated all these different things that I learned in the online game into real life business, and I've implemented those strategies.
Never heard of something like that. That's great.
I've heard it's a very strategic game. Right? I've heard it's a strategic game. I have never played it.
Yeah, it's like a big online game with lots of people playing on one server. So it's got its own economies in the game, everything. But actually, Ben Francis, who runs Gymshark, he used to play World of Warcraft, and he took the same thing. Who built a $1 billion brand, and he learned and played from World of Warcraft as well. So it just shows there is some kind of advantages to online game as such. But
you are a gamer, you're not totally fucked. You can turn it around
yeah,
if you want to.
I played for like 1-2 years, very intense Call of Duty for a bit, and I think that also helped me when it comes into then meeting Wakar and Wally, my two partners, because I was not afraid of speaking to someone online, because that was the first time where you get your small mics. That was even before like having these big headsets. Yeah. You get these small mics first. So I made friends, as you said, with some of the people online. And I think that transfer also, that when I was 18 or 19 and we started to meet online, I didn't have that barrier that, for example, my dad was like, what's going on? You know, like, what do you mean like making friends online and things like this?
My mum never let me have Xbox Live until I was about 15 or 16. She thought I was going to meet paedophiles online and they're going to be talking to me while I'm playing Halo.
You would have beaten the shit out of a paedophile even at 14 years old.
I'm not going to
Tell the story. Tell the story.
It sounds like you already did.
Okay, this podcast is meant to be very serious, and now we're going to talk about beating paedophiles up. Yeah. But okay, this is actually a true story. Okay, right? That we had when me and my friend were growing up, right? We had this weird guy from a local town, right? And he tried to groom us. He tried to groom me and my friend.
No way.
And we would not play along with it. We were like, right, we need to get something out of this situation. We're going to make some money out of this. And we ended up trying to, this guy was like, tell us to come meet us and all this kind of stuff like that. And we got a group of our friends like, right, yeah, come meet us in this car park. And he ended up driving to this car park, right, and his little bus thing or something like that. There was 4 of us, like 4 cars all waiting for him. As soon as he turned around, he saw us. We chased him straight up the road. We were pelting things at his car. Yeah, and that was he's ended up being arrested literally about a month ago, and he's been.
You cleaned up the streets.
Literally. So that's I don't know how.
Didn't you try to extort him as well?
Yeah, literally. We all tried to extort. We were like 15, 16 or something like this. We would have been 17, 18 because we had cars at this time. So yeah, still quite young. But yeah, we did try to extort someone at 17, 18. So I wouldn't advise doing that. I'm not condoning that activity.
If you're going to extort anyone, extort paedophiles. That's really the best. Yeah,
it's worth it.
How about you, Jack? Did you do any? Because you're doing a lot of combat sports now, which is more of an individual sport. What kind of background did you have for sports when you were younger?
I played the same football team. My dad was the manager from 5 years old to 18 years old. So that was looking back on my life so far. Those Sundays playing football and the training sessions with those boys are some of the best times of my life that I've ever had. A lot of my personality was built on the football pitch because of sort of becoming a leader. I ended up being a captain and learning to fight for what you wanted in a game, to not lose spirit. That was always a key part of my game and why I became captain of that team. But looking back on it, the combat sports I did now was all triggered off of one event. I always thought I was real hard, and I always thought I was like a hero, basically, just because I was a bit brainwashed. I watched so many movies and stuff. I had a good physique as well. Like, I was doing press-ups from young, and I was never fat or anything. I was pretty lean. And then I got beaten up outside of a pub when I was 16 in the UK, pretty badly. I was being a dick. It was, I'd kicked someone's pint over when I came out of the pub. And I was just, first time I'd really been properly drunk. They were like, why did you do that? I was like, I don't give a fuck. Let's just give him some mouth. And then I had like 3 28-year-olds beat the shit out of me. Yep. My mate, Jack, who you know, Jack Hogg, got them off me. One of them came over to apologise because they felt a bit bad. I was 16, they were 28. It's a bit of a dick thing to do. Yeah. And I headbutted him in the face. And then they beat the shit out of me majorly after that. And it was after that moment, even though the issue had been my fault, like I was a young guy and I was drunk and I was being an idiot. There was times in that beating that if my friend hadn't been there or they hadn't stopped, I was really fucked. Like I couldn't do anything about it and it hurt. And it was the first time I'd been hurt by that and the first time I'd felt like someone and not having any power in a situation. And it was a week after that I was in boxing lessons and I was learning boxing. And I started boxing after that, and I feel that's been a huge change in my life because before that you feel like you're hard, you feel like you need to prove it. A lot of young guys end up getting themselves into trouble because they want to prove themselves on a night out because they don't get time to prove themselves in the boxing ring. And then after I started training, you get humbled very quickly. I had a fight at 18, boxing match, lost it, humbled again in front of all your friends and family. And you have to build it for real. You have to build it for real so you have something to show for it. And it was that period of like, man, I remember just before that fight, I was 18 years old. I had a girlfriend at the time. And I don't know why she did this, but she said to me, if you win tonight, we can do anal. And if you lose, we can't do anal. And I lost. And that fucking really, really got me. That really
got into your head.
That got into my head, that did. That really got me after losing that fight. And it took me I think it was 2 years until I got, or maybe even longer, like 3 years until I got into the ring again for an MMA fight. And I ended up winning that fight. And I can tell you now, that feeling when you've had I had 3 years of very much like self-doubt in my mind of like, you're not actually the man. Your whole like life where you were growing up thinking you were hard, you've just been beaten up. And you've been beaten up a lot now. You've been beaten up outside pubs. You've been beaten up in sparring. You haven't even won a fight. And so for me, that was all getting in my mind of like, started to brew, and I trained harder than ever. And it was actually at that moment, I signed up for another fight when my life had started to go downhill. I'd got into drugs and alcohol and partying too much. And I remembered this feeling that I wanted to change in my life. I was like, you're doing this stuff because you feel like a loser. You're drinking, you're hiding behind it. You're hiding behind bravado. You're hiding behind booze and alcohol and drugs. And so I was like, all right, we're going to give all of that up. We're going to get it for real this time. And then I trained like an animal. I just trained so hard for it was just a charity fight, but I trained so hard for it. I just devoted my life to it. And I got a normal job at the time. And I just worked and I trained and I worked and I trained. I give up all booze, smoking, alcohol, drugs, everything. And I won that fight. And that was really, looking back on it, the start of the trajectory for me. Because after that, after you've won that and you've proved something to yourself, you start to feel like a hero. And I was like, okay, if I can do that, what else can I do? And then my life started to get a little bit closer to what it is now.
So at that moment, you were going through a lot of self-doubt, and I'm sure all of us have experienced that. Do you ever still go through these? Do you guys go through that moments of self-doubt at the moment, with things that you build in your businesses? Because I know I do.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely normal that you always, and I think everybody is always trying to excel. So therefore, you're always trying to be someone ahead of your current self. So you're always trying to be, I want to be this. So, but you're not there yet. So you're always trying to like internally put in the traits, but you're faking it until you make it. But just a couple months ahead kind of thing. And there will be moments where I'm like, I'm actually not that, and I need to keep striving. But when you're kind of in low mood or whatever, but I find this very interesting, and it's kind of a cliche saying, but you've actually put it into a story, or you can attest to it, is that you kind of hit rock bottom, and you were doing things maybe you shouldn't be doing, drinking too much and so forth, and then you had a moment where it switched. But it sounds like for you, it was not like a curve out. It was like overnight, or let me get my stuff together. What was that? Why was it then? And like, what caused that trigger?
I'll tell you why. I've spoken about this before, so I'll speak about it now. Hopefully it's all right to say on the podcast, but I'd started dealing drugs at the time to just make money and pay for my own habit. And when you do a lot of drugs, you end up, and you drink a lot of alcohol, you end up with terrible anxiety. So I had a period of anxiety where I just couldn't leave the house, and that was a problem because I was meant to be a drug dealer, so I wouldn't answer my phone. I get sketched out when I've seen people, and I looked to myself, and I was only 21, and I was like, you're a crazy person, bro. I was like looking in the mirror, and I was practically living in it was meant to be a uni house. It had turned into pretty much just a drug house. And I was living in there, and I just looked to myself, and I couldn't actually do anything at this point. I was just in the house. I couldn't make money. I couldn't even go out and party at this point. And I had no choice, because I was like, this is just so far removed from everything you ever wanted to be. I just looked at myself, and my physique had withered away. And I just thought, we got to change that. And it was just a switch like that. And I was like, I'd had enough. The pain had got enough for me to make a change. I was just under ultimate pain. I was like, the pain of me changing is less than the pain of me continuing this lifestyle. And I'd understood that the things I was searching for in drugs or alcohol or dealing or women was never going to be found. I realized it was all a fallacy. It was all imagination. It was all made up. That the feelings I was chasing were just getting smaller and smaller, and they were never going to be true. And I remembered back to when they were real feelings from achievement and sport, and I just wanted that again.
Do you think that switch, because I'm very interested on that thing, because I've seen a lot of friends that have gone through the bad path and they didn't have that switch, so they ended up in a place, I don't know the word in English, but a place that rehab place. And do you think that switch comes from how you were grown up as your family? Because I always thought about this, like why some people don't have maybe that switch or that discipline moment of saying like, I'm gonna stop it right now, and I can actually, and some people actually end up in rehab places, which again is amazing if you're in a bad situation, but that switch, like do you think is?
I think you're exactly right, because how I told you about my childhood is very good. So I didn't have too many internal demons. I had love when I was a child, and I didn't have anything deep inside, which I think a lot of people are battling. I was just a good kid that had taken the wrong path. For whatever reasons you do, things happen to you, and you end up trying things out, and it didn't last long for me. But I think for people that end up in a rehab, for example, they got some really bad inner demons. They never had that love as a child. So for me, I knew something else for myself. I knew that there was a version of me that I loved for who he was and what he was doing. And I could always see that. As I always knew when I was doing bad things. I think some people, if you're grown up in an environment where it's normal for your mum and dad, for example, to be like that, I think it'd be very difficult for you to try and see it without having a role model. So that's why they end up in those places.
Do you think like, so in that sense, you had a fortunate upbringing, which allowed you to get yourself out of that hole. What advice kind of would you give to someone who doesn't have the same upbringing, that was normalized, or their friends and family are kind of in a similar state, that they kind of feel helpless to their scenario of, I can't make it out because my environment, my friends, the pressure. Do you think they can?
100%. I think, you've actually got an advantage when you're in that scenario, because your upbringing is your greatest advantage, and mine was for certain reasons. But no matter who you are, you recently gifted us a book, The Obstacle is the Way, and I've been reading it every day.
That's true.
And in that book they talk about the fact that if you look through your life, everything that leads to the success that you have now comes from the fact that you had an obstacle in the past. So if you're currently sitting in a position or a place where your life sucks and you hate your life and you're in a bad family, in a bad situation, you're actually very privileged in a fucked up kind of way, because you've already had your hardship. And there's a lot of people, they look at their lives and they have everything and they feel empty, and they have to find hardship themselves. Now, you've been given hardship, and what I see that as in my eyes is God's giving you a chance to prove yourself. So as long as you have inside of you the belief that things can get better, and you start doing just a little bit by little bit to try and improve your life, you've already hit the bottom. Most people have to find it. Most people have to find their struggle. You're living yours already. So you can use it as your advantage, turn things around.
I had a real life experience of this. Literally, this is how I am the man that I am today. Mm-hmm. So my dad was a very wealthy individual, had a great business. I moved there when I was 18 to work with him, and I worked with him for 3 years. One day I turn around and my life is switched upside down. I'm not going to go into the details of it. People who know me know the story, but I had the life, and then it's just flipped upside down. Gone. Everything gone.
What age is this?
This is when I was 20 years old. So I had to leave Italy, and I went to New Zealand on my own for a whole year. And that moment, I had everything ahead of me. And when I was working for my dad, everything was going great. And I wasn't as motivated as I am today. I had everything given to me on a plate in some ways. I mean, to be fair, that's not a right way to say it. I still had to work for my dad, but I had a good life and I had a very good upbringing. But when you have that situation, like you just said, the obstacle, turn my life around, I had no more support from my dad, had no more support from any of my family members. I had to rely on myself. And that's what made me who I am today. There's no way I would have been as successful as I am right now if I didn't have that burn or the necessity of survival to keep going. Because when I got back to England from New Zealand, I was completely broke. I'd spent all my money on traveling. I would work for a month, travel for a month, work for a month, travel for a month. Got back to UK, and I was going to go and live back in Italy with my dad. For various reasons I didn't. I said, I'm just going to get a job in the UK for a bit, get a bit of money. And that part of me where I had no one to rely on is that's why I became so successful as I am now, because I know no one's going to help me out anymore. I've got to rely on, and that for me is the most fulfilling. I don't have to explain the most fulfilling sense that you can keep in yourself when you don't have to rely on anyone else. I don't have to rely on anyone to provide anything for me apart from myself, and that is a very, very strong emotional, strong thing to keep inside yourself. And you guys probably have the same thing. And
that's something you can see on wealthy environments with their kids. Is like they go through high school, they go through university. They go to very nice areas, or cities, to party and to have a nice university. So that's also the difference between moving an environment, going to a place like New Zealand, being broke, or you choosing to go to, let's say, study in Milan, where you will have been around all your boys or all your friends, partying, and then all those 4 or 5 years are thrown because you're getting a degree and all this. But I mean, like, they're not going to shift you as when you went to another country, you're broke. That's where also I cannot relate, because my friends are doing very good on the corporate side, but no one had the ego to start something. And the reason is also for my environment place. I went to America. I had a full scholarship, yes, but things are not getting paid. If I want to go on spring break, my dad has to send some money, and then he's not going to be like, I'll throw you 1K for you to go and party. So that's when things and moving out of your environment, if not, I would have been just studying in Madrid, having like a nice life, nice university, partying, and then when I'm 24, I'll be like, oh, like, now what? That's when life hits you of like, oh, now I have to go to a place that I don't want to work. At least myself, that's kind of, I think you're totally right. Like, going that places makes your story. Now look at you, like, you're very young, and then you have a story to tell.
I don't know if you guys have read the book. It's called Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And I'm kind of, all three of you have said similar things from that book, which is essentially, and there's famous sayings of seek discomfort, or Hamza says, do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Taste methodology is basically be disciplined. And in that book, they give a parable. I don't know if it's a real story or not, but it's a very wealthy man, and he went through hell to get to where he got to be a wealthy man. So much hardship, and they're explaining this story. And because he has so much scar and trauma from his life, he was like, when I have kids, I want to give them the complete opposite. And he did it. And he was like, he's going to create this huge compound, and the kids are going to have butlers and maids, and they're not even going to go out to the city. They have everything given to them. So these kids were living in a bubble, and he was thinking, okay, if I shelter them from everything, no problems, no stress, no pain, nothing. And you'd think, okay, the kids are going to be a very stress-free life and they're going to be very happy and fulfilled. But actually the kids ended up the complete opposite, and they started to feel depressed, they started to feel unmotivated. And then the story goes on to say that one of the kids broke out of the compound and actually for the first time went into the city. I think it was a poor city. So then the kid was seeing all of the suffering around and realized, oh wow, I've been living a lie my whole life. And then was very angry at the father, like, why did you hide me from the world and the feelings that they were feeling. And I can kind of see in all of us, it's the idea of putting yourselves in new environments and throwing yourselves into a fight camp, throwing yourselves into a new situation. Myself moving to Madrid, yourself moving to the US, it's different environments that can really shape you and push you forward in life. I wanted to touch back on the point you made though, because it sounds like you had a moment, a switch of motivation, like I need to get my things together, and you are feeling a high internally of like, I need to go, and today's the day and I'm going to start. And a lot of people probably do that. A lot of people have that moment of, okay, I need to fix up, but people often have that moment, keep it up for 3-4 days and relapse. What was you defining for you that you had that switch, but you maintained the switch and got out the hole and then reached your highest high?
For me, it was because in my head, I've always had the person that I want to be, a vision of who I want to be. And there was no option for a relapse to become that person. That person, that vision was still in my mind. I still wanted to become that hero. And if I'd relapsed, and another part of that is when you're in a position like that, I felt terrible every day. I had no energy. I felt anxious. I would do anything to get away from that feeling at that point. And I started to feel better. It's like, imagine if you start going to the gym, you're super overweight and you do a month and you start to see a little bit of results. For me, my results were so quick because if you cut off drugs and alcohol, yeah, maybe you got a bit of withdrawals for a while, but even the withdrawals wasn't as bad as yesterday's hangover. So for me, I was getting a little bit better every day and I was starting to feel a little bit more like myself again every day. And it was that feeling of like, okay, I've achieved a little bit today. And I still lived in a house where people were doing this every single day. I would just come and say no at that point because I hadn't cut myself off at a point where I wanted to continue. So a lot of people stop themselves partying when they still got it in their system. And that's not a bad thing. You probably should never get to the point that I was at. But for me, it had no fun or joy associated with it anymore. I could just see it for what it was, and that was destroying my life. So all of the things in my mind had been destroyed. All of the ideas that I held around drugs and alcohol being fun and partying being fun and selling drugs being fun had been exploded. So I didn't feel that way anymore. Just my personal opinion.
Alex?
I was just going to ask, like, so that's the period where you were in university, you mentioned. Yeah. Did you guys went to university?
I dropped out, actually. This was my second year. I was in a university house, but I was not going to university. I dropped out after my first year.
Weirdly, I spoke about this story yesterday with you. We were talking about universities for some reason. I look at some of my friends that have been to university, and I haven't been to university, and I'll think about how I got to that situation. Sorry, I've gone back on what I said. I didn't go to university, and the reason was that I just wanted to go and work. I wanted to go and see the real world. I didn't enjoy the idea of going to be in some halls, being broke all the time, doing everything for myself inside this with all the people that I didn't really know. I just wanted to work and learn, and I knew that my dad was running a decent business over in Italy, and I always had the idea that I wanted to live in Italy. So for me, living in the UK was not really a great option for me at the time. I didn't really enjoy it. I hated sixth form. I did 2 years of school, did my A-levels where I absolutely hated every single minute. I pretty much did have, I think, about 30 or 40% attendance through the whole of the 2 years. I just wasn't interested. I knew that the way to make money was to go out there and do that because I've been brought up in a family of entrepreneurs. My mum had their own shop, weird things, and my dad had his own business. So because I've been grown up around that environment, I knew that was where the real money is made, and that's where I want to do. For me, my passion was making money, and that was it. I wasn't interested in learning about other stuff. And I knew my business studies teachers, I always had arguments with my teachers because I always thought I knew better than them. And sometimes I think about I do know better than them because they're teaching and they're earning that kind of money, and I'm living their life now, and I've done better than them in 10 years. So I know it sounds a bit kind of big-headed, but I just, that's how I've always grown up around that. My dad has always reinforced that to me. He says, you just need to get your school out of the way, then come and live with me. And that's what I did. So I never went to university.
So they were actually supportive in that sense, your family?
Yeah, 100%. My dad wanted me to go and work for him. Okay. He knew, because I could be his little lackey as such. I could go around, do things for him. He could trust me. And the thing is with we're working in Italy, they need people you can trust. You know, and that's the same thing with business. I'd rather have someone I can trust than someone who's good and I can't trust. I'd rather have someone I can put my confidence into and talk about things frankly. And that's what my dad wanted out of me. He knew I was his son. I wasn't going to ever say anything he didn't want me to say. And I could do things for him that other people couldn't do. So that's why he asked me to go work for him.
When did you first start? At what age? The entrepreneurial route? And what were the first steps you were taking?
I used to earn £8 a week working as a paper round job. So I would work Monday to Saturday delivering papers after school, and then Saturday morning I'd wake up, go on my bike, deliver 17 papers every single week, and I earned £8. That's like €10. So I wasn't an entrepreneur, that's my job, and I realized that, but that gave me the value of money. And we had a conversation about this in the group the other day. You know, you have to go through those moments where you just don't earn a lot of money so you can understand the value of it. I don't get frivolous too much with my money now because I know how much blood, sweat and tears it's taking me to earn the money in the first place. So I started earning a very little amount of money in my paper round job. And then I went to work in a fish and chip shop, and that was like £16 a shift. So very little money. And my entrepreneur, I was in school, and I was a classic guy who would go to Costco, buy sweets and chocolates, and I used to do meal deals, £1.50 Pepsi and a Boost bar, just simple things like that. And I got expelled. I didn't get expelled, sorry. I got Friday night detention for that. And then they ruined my business model. This is how they ruined my business model, because they introduced fingerprints. So they'd load all the money onto the fingers, and I was like, right, well, no one's got any cash on them anymore. So I was done out of business. So that was my first experience of failure and taken out by competition. So no, and I kind of went through loads. I've started so many different businesses and failed at them. I mean, even in the past 3 or 4 years, I started a skincare brand. I started I'm not going to speak about the other one right now. Say it. A custom vibrator business, and that was pretty successful. But yeah, I didn't carry on with that anymore. What else did I start? I tried to start a digital marketing agency, and one thing I realized from all these kind of things that I tried to start on is that you just need to focus your attention on one business, one thing. Until you've got a business which is running itself, like my business is right now, you can't dedicate time to trying to build 5 or 6 different businesses, because you just need to be able to. It's so hard to grow and succeed with one business at the point. To try and do 3 or 4 at a time, it's just impossible, in my opinion, unless you're a super talented individual, which there is some people out there, but they've already got funding behind them. I always try to build these businesses with my own funds. I don't like to take investors on. I like to try and do everything myself, because I like to keep control, and I like to have the direction of the ability to say, this is what I'm going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and I don't want to have to ask, because sometimes it can slow people down. Unless you guys, I'm really interested to learn about this, because you've got like a trio going on. So how do you kind of how do you direct or make decisions on an efficient basis where you might have conflicts, and how do you tackle that?
I think working in a trio is the most beautiful thing, or not necessarily trio, but as a group. And Tate started to popularize the message, but I think we understood it from beforehand. Is as young guys, you're not supposed to be a lone wolf. You're supposed to be part of a pact. And especially if you find people that are a similar stage to you and similar values, similar ethics, you're not going to be in that environment of cautious of, are they going to snake me or are they going to do me over? But if you can have loyalty to each other, trust to each other, and we chose to live together, and we've been living together for a while. And it's not a sense of affordability, it's a sense of we want to be in each other's environments, because when you have that brotherhood, it's a very empowering force beyond just your self-motivation, because now you're with your boys and you're growing together, you're hustling together, you're coming up with ideas together, and also being in each other's energy environment, you have a positive influence on each other, and it has so many compounding benefits beyond just trying to do it yourself. And I do think people that go the solo route have a harder challenge, because the days I'm not feeling like it, I've got my boys to cover, or I'm struggling through something, my boys can cover, and vice versa. So it's I would encourage, okay, you have to then divide the profits, but you're going to make more money as being a team, because you have You're playing to more strengths.
Bigger network too.
Yeah, you can do so many things that I think, and I see it with you two now, like deciding to live together, deciding to maybe not business for now, but like you guys will think of something, you guys will do something, and the energy will bounce off each other. That I think is, if you're not married and you don't have these kind of commitments, you should be living with your boys. You shouldn't be living alone in a city where you're trying to just on the weekends link with your friends and whatever, because you don't have that positive environment.
We just learned something from it that I think, looking back, is very, very important. And if I was to start again, this is something key. And I think we've put this barrier between other people. We've done different ventures when it comes into business. And something that we now realize is that we just do now business with people, of course, we trust. We don't do business anymore with like a 1 month meeting, 2 month meeting. Minimum has to be like now 8 months to 1 year. We know the person. But something very, very important is like, what sort of money he is making. Because something we've realized is like we did a venture where we gave the opportunity to the person where we knew he didn't have the money, but he had the ability to make it. So we gave that hand. And the problem that we see in this situation is that money amplifies the person. So you're going to get lucky if that person, then when you give the hand, actually supports you and God comes with you. But you're going to also see the contrary, where some ego comes into his head and now he thinks he's superior to you after you giving the hand. So I think something we've learned too is like, it's not about levels, you know, but if they are not making X amount of money and you are making X amount of money, that opportunity can be hard, because if that person is making 2K a month and you're helping him to make 100K a month, that jump of money is very big.
It's going to change him.
It's going to change him. And we've learned this 1-2 times. We've seen it. Like, it's not like we've seen it one time, it's been a couple of them. And now it's more like, I think it's very important. Or you grow together, you know, from almost zero or similar, you know, to a point, or you guys are at the same level. Same level could be, doesn't need to be the exact number, you know, but similar level. And then you can see, because if you are this sort of person making this sort of money, I can trust you on different levels. That's something we've learned out of it.
And actually the opposite, we've had 1 or 2 scenarios where we've decided not a business venture, but some form of collaboration. Let's help each other out. Because there's a different skill set and you have something, we have something, you know, we can be powerful together. We've noticed a couple of people, they find our trio very intimidating. And more so they feel like an outsider, because they know we're living together, we're hustling together, we're going to the gym together, everything together. And they're not in it in the same way. They're completely in the meetings, they're completely in the business, but they're not in the environment. And they kind of feel like an outsider. And sometimes it's even harder to connect. And that can birth insecurities. That can birth now something that's a normal scenario, but they overthink it. And something might be going on over here. And these kind of things can then lead to a detriment. So we've kind of realized now, at least, we've been in maybe 5-6 scenarios where and every time you have a bad scenario, you're like, okay, my guard's up, I'm going to be even more cautious. And then it catches you out in another way. And you're like, okay, now it's the second time, let's learn again. Now even higher guard up, now more cautious. Sometimes being so cautious has pushed away deals for us, because we look like we're asking for too many things. And you know, we're happy to walk away from those situations. But then in the end, we just made the decision, no more collaborations. We're a team, we've done well till now, we're going to keep it that way. We don't need more people, more things, and if we walk away from opportunities, so be it. Dario, I wanted to jump into your story a bit more. So it sounds like you were exchanging your time for money, which is, I think everybody should start with like that, but you had a sense of, I want to do more, and I think that phase for you was growing your traits, growing your skills, you know, the work ethic and being okay with doing the tough work. And then eventually you did pivot into your own things, and you started one business and another. But if you were kind of using your first vessel, the first kind of thing you started, which is newspaper, paper round, this kind of stuff, a lot of people are scared to pivot. They're like, okay, I started a business, I've already made a website, I've already done this and that. And they're fighting an uphill battle. And they don't understand that, okay, maybe this is not my industry. Maybe this is a declining industry. For example, newspapers. Now with the online media, newspapers are declining. But if somebody decided, I'm going to need to go all in on newspapers, and I need to work up the ranks, start as a paper boy and work up. How did you decide, because it was a very interesting industry that you were in, and we haven't spoke about it yet. How did you decide, first of all, the industry to choose, and then how did you expand through it?
So I was working at Volkswagen. I was a service advisor there, and I overheard some of the salesmen on the forecourt talking about a lot of the camper vans that were coming through on the forecourt, and they had a lot of money in them, a lot of margin. So an average used car sales garage will make £500 to £1,000 margin on the chassis. And this camper van came through and they were kept going on, it's £10,000, it's £10,000, and my ears pricked up straight away. So I knew that something was going on. And I was going through a time where the sales manager wanted me to go work for sales team, and I wanted to go work for sales, wanted to earn more money, but my service manager didn't want me to leave because I was doing so well for the service team. So there was already a conflict of interest there in my growth progression. And I don't like an industry where, or a career where my progression is limited by someone else's decision. That's why I've always wanted to have my own business. So I understood that there was money in these camper vans, and I decided to start looking into it. I started researching suppliers where I could get the vans converted, how much the cost of the materials was, how much the vans were. And it took me about 3 months to really kind of get a good idea just by talking to people, really. And at the time, I was just in a point where I was like, I either need to do something now or I'm going to be like this forever. And
what age is this? Sorry.
I was 22 at this age. Okay. Yeah, so I was 22. I'm coming up to 23 years old, and I just knew, like, I actually got another job offer for a racking business for software and computers, and they offered me a good job. And I went into the interview, got the job offer, and I sat in the car park. I vividly remember this moment. I sat in the car park in a little Fiat 500, and I was like, if I take this job, I'm going to be here forever. This is it. And I always speak to my friends like, don't go work at Rolls Royce where we got in Derby, because you'll be in that job forever. You're going to do the same thing all the time. You're going to get comfortable. They're going to give you a good amount of money, but it's just not enough money to do the best things in life. So I was like, I need to do something about this. And I just quit my jobs, and I just said, all right, I'm going to go full in on this camper van business. And I did a business loan through the government, Prince's Trust, the higher version of the Prince's Trust, and I got my first van and I started converting it. But what I learned, and this is one thing I want to say to a lot of younger guys, because I get a lot of questions from younger guys: how can I make more money? How can I get into business? How can I do things? You have to learn the skill first. And the reason I understood this, because you have to be able to understand when you're talking to people about the job, what it takes to do the job. And like, if you want to build a team, you need to be able to tell your staff members how to do it. You can't have someone coming into your staff member, into your team, and not they know more about it than you in some aspects. You've got to have a very good understanding of the business in every way. So I learned the skill first, and then okay, let me reframe this. I knew I wanted to do a business, but I didn't know the skill. And I wasn't interested in doing the skill. I'm not a hands-on person, really, realistically. I'm very good at my job now because I've forced myself to learn it. But I had to go and learn how to use drills. I had to go learn how to use tools, things that I'm not a mechanically minded person. People look at me and think, oh, you're an amazing camper van converter. I'm not mechanically minded at all. I just know how to put 2 and 2 together, and I just learned the skill, and then I passed that on to my staff members. But I know what I'm talking about when they come to ask me questions. So you can't go into a business and you can't be a mentor. We get a lot of questions. People want to be a mentor at 18, 19 years old. You've got to learn this first. You can't do that. You've got to learn the base knowledge and then do it, and then progress your team. So I learned how to do all the conversions. I learned how to do window fitting. I learned how to fit roofs. I learned how to do diesel, all the different things, the part that you need to do in a conversion. And after that, I then got a staff member, I taught them how to do it. As I moved on, I realized that my time was becoming more valuable by doing the sales and running of the business. And I'm a big believer in hiring people that are better than yourself to do other things that you're not good at. So I knew I was good at sales. I know I'm good at driving the business. I know what needs to be done in terms of marketing, and I know how to drive the business forward. I shouldn't be in the workshop fitting the vans, because for a period of 2 years, I was on the phone, fitting roofs, fitting like this. Literally, there's videos of me fitting roofs with the phone in the hand like this, trying to do sales. I'm like, after a while, it took a mentor for me to come into my business and basically rip me apart, me paying him a lot of money for him to come in, and it was absolutely value for money. And he just ripped me apart all day and said, you're doing everything wrong. But I listened to that, and I took that on board and implemented everything that he said. And that has completely changed my business 180 degrees in 2 years.
What was important for you to have? For example, you could have also had the thing of, I'm doing it all and I'm learning along the way, which is how you started. I'm going to expose myself to it and learn and get there. And I know you're supposed to hire people that are ahead of you, because you don't want the bottleneck to be yourself. And I think even Ben Francis, he went through that journey of, he hired the best of the best and then realized he's getting out of touch with his own business, and how can you be a leader without understanding everything. So he decided to take back the CEO role to then go in each department and learn. So you kind of realize, okay, you're in a phase where you're learning it by yourself. You've got a team around you now. How did you pivot to say, actually, I need external help? I need someone to guide me.
I knew I wanted to be bigger than what I am now. And to get to those levels, I was getting to the point where I needed to go through legal documents, contracts, supply distribution agreements. And these are all areas of business that I've never had experience in. They're all parts that you don't get taught at school, really, unless you go to university. And I didn't do these kind of things with my dad, so I didn't have an experience. So I knew I needed help from someone else, because the thing with mentoring it's not about how much it costs, it's about how much it saves you in mistakes. And this is what I learned from my mentor. I spent a lot of money with him, but it saved me so much money in avoided mistakes from stepping on landmines. Who did we speak to who said that?
Justin
said
Justin
that.
Wallace
It's like
said that.
stepping on landmines. That's what it avoids.
And time.
Pardon?
Plus time.
Plus time, yeah, exactly. So it accelerated my knowledge quickly through the 2 years that I was with him. And I basically used that knowledge, I implemented it, and it's worked out for the best, really. And now I'm trying to, like you said, pivot into the next stage of my career. I've got the business, and I feel like with every business, got a sweet spot. You've got a sweet spot where if you expand too much, your costs go up and then your profits come down. And right now, my business is in a great spot where it's in good profit levels. It's not got too much time requirements for me. And now I can pivot into a different section of business, which is where I'm going in the next part of my career as such.
Are you getting external help for that, for the next phase?
At the moment, no, but I will be when I'm ready to do it. I need to go back to the UK right now, set some things up. I've got plans for the business in that aspect, but then I will be looking for external help in that, because I know I need to have that external help. I'm going into an industry which is completely new. You guys have got experience in online business. I don't have that much experience in it. And I think that mentoring help can just basically just speed things up for you. If you've got the money behind you to do that, then I can't recommend it enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Alex Hormozy, one of our favorite people online, he says your biggest cost in a business is not labor, it's not your employees, whatever. Your biggest cost is ignorance. And he even takes to the extreme of saying, how much are you making? Oh, I'm making 100K a year. Well, your ignorance is costing you 900K a year for not being a millionaire. If you don't know how to be a millionaire, it's costing you 900K. And if you just, okay, sounds funny, whatever, but if you have that paradigm shift and think, well, actually, there's reasons I'm not making it, and it's because I don't know how to do it, well, then I need to go ahead and find out how to do it. And you put down your pride and say, okay, let me get that help. I wanted to ask, because now you've actually reached a very good stage in your business where you're hitting 7-figure years, you're kind of, which a lot of people can reach, but the impressive thing that you've done is you've now been able to maintain it and step away. You've hired correctly, and you've got a full setup to the point where your business is a brick and mortar physical business in the UK. It's not online, and then you're living in Thailand. How do you feel like you stop the business? Everything entropies and decays. Everything kind of, the employees will stop being as strict because you're not in the country, and things can start off high and then slowly get worse. How are you preventing that from happening?
I think you have to price that into your services. You have to understand that that's going to happen in any business. Someone was telling me, my barber was telling me he met a great guy, very good business. He allowed a 10% steal tax in his business. He knew that people were going to steal from his shops, his staff employees, and he employed that aspect into his margin. He employed a 10% margin extra because he expected people to be pocketing things every now and then. So I expected this to happen. I did a test before I left, before I came to Thailand. I removed myself from the business for about 2 months, and I handed it over to my manager. The problem was that I was only up the road, so it was very easy for guys to call me and say, can you come and help me out, do this? So I had a good understanding of what was going to happen, and I knew what the problems were. And what I feel like I'm quite good in my business is that when I get a problem, I write it down and I think of a solution to it. And I try to think of every possible way to stop, to be efficient. So for example, when a customer's coming to drop off a van we had always these problems where they would say, well, can we do this? Can we do this? I implemented a simple document where they have to sign before they come to drop the van off. That basically outlines every question that they were going to ask me, which would keep getting repeated every time. So where's my time being spent every day? And I put in processes to reduce that time, so it's already done for me. So once I tested that for a year, basically through running the business, and I came out to Thailand and basically allowed that to happen. And as it goes on, you just adjust the systems to work in your favor. And it's still, every day there's always problems. You've got to be putting out fires wherever you are, but that's just part of running a business. You've got to accept that. And it's just about how you can improve that on a continuous improvement on a daily basis. You can never perfect anything, otherwise everything would be you'd be at the levels of every other business in like Apple, etc. But they're still working on problems. So it's just like a never-ending game. You just got to continuously improve every day and improve the processes, make it as efficient as possible, and that's what I aim to do every day with my business.
Plus, I also think that if you reach that sweet point already in that career, where you know you can accept that 10% lower, but you're putting your time and effort into something that is kind of like unlimited potential, I will also accept that 10% lower, knowing it still is safe and secure and it has a structure in place to still make very good money a year. So I think...
There's another guy called Alex Becker, and he recently exited a software company for maybe 200 million. But he started off as a nobody, and he started off with not too many skills. He was ex-military, and then different things happened. So he said you have to have phases in your career, and it sounds like you're going from one phase to the next, and it's a transition. And it's interesting because the way he was saying, first you start off exchanging your time for money, and even on your guys' episode, Justin said the same. You start off with that exchange. You start off with what you know. And that's kind of what you were doing. You started off yourself doing the kit conversions, and then you use leverage of other people's time and expanded it. But this industry, well, this business that you're at, it will have a cap. This is not going to get you to 100 million. It will get you to maybe 10 million or 5 million, something like that. But then you got to kind of know when to pivot. So you got to know, okay, this is my vehicle to 100K. Now my vehicle to 1 million. What's my vehicle to 10 million? And if you're trying to do the 100K thing, but trying to scale it, it's not going to get you to that end goal. So you need to know when to pivot. So he did the online thing like yourself, and he grew that to a certain level, and then realized, okay, now I've reached a point where I've really capped the online thing. So I need to pivot, which is when he went into software, and he knew that was the next vehicle. So now you're entering a new phase. I guess you've understood, okay, it's time for pivot. I've kind of managed that, reached the cap of that. I've also done the more impressive thing, which is automated it. So you can still have cash flow whilst you work on a new project instead of going all in on something new and relying on your savings and so forth. So that's obviously a very impressive thing. Jack, I wanted to jump to you now. So I wanted to ask you, I've seen on your Instagram Q&As that you do, just yesterday, it was, people can be very one-dimensional, especially at our age of they just want to be really in shape and they want to get girls and they want to be aesthetically good looking, or they want to be focused just on business and they want to excel and make a lot of money to the detriment of other things. What would you be, in your own words, like what would be the most important buckets to fill for a man?
Yeah, I think every man needs to look at their life and probably 7 different buckets. I don't know if I can list them all off, but you've got your physique, your relationships, and this is actually relationships with like your family and your friends. You've got women, they're a bucket on their own. Combat. Did I say money?
Oh, yeah. Money. Yeah.
Money. Lifestyle in terms of like your location around the world. Setting up your life in the right way. You've essentially got, I probably haven't named 7 there, but you've got basically different buckets that you need to look at for your life across different aspects of who you are as a man. And for me, I would look at somebody like James Bond, for example. The men that we respect, like you get someone like Bill Gates and they got all the money, and that's cool. And they got a business and that's cool, but no one looks at Bill Gates and really says like, I want to be Bill Gates, which is unfortunate because he has the capacity to be basically a superhero. That's all Batman is. Just has money, and then he just learned how to do the rest, the charisma, the fighting, the women, the style. All of that has to be learned as a man. So what a lot of young guys will do is just focus on one particular area, and I did exactly the same thing. I just focused on fitness first, which is the best one to focus on in my opinion, because you can do it when you're young. You can do it if you're locked in your room. You can just do push-ups, make sure you don't eat shit, and then you're going to end up in shape. And that's a fundamental part of like having respect for yourself, learning to maintain your body, being in good shape. You're going to get more respect. It's going to make everything else easier. Makes women easier, makes making money easier. But most men, they get to the money bucket, and if they fill it up particularly fast, they then rely on it to supplement all the others. So they'll use money to get women. They use money to stay out of conflict, use money to make friends. But the problem is, unless you go across all aspects as a man and you start to work on them, okay, I can fight, okay, I'm in good shape, I'm good with my family, I've repaired relationships with my family, I've forgiven my parents, or I look after my parents, I've got a business, I can handle my money now, I can be good with women, and that's not just getting laid, that's like learning how to manage a relationship so that your woman's happy in a relationship and you're happy. Because so many guys end up finding their first girlfriend and end up in a relationship. They don't know what they're doing. They end up very unhappy and ends up ruining their lives. So I think part of becoming a professional man, professional across all aspects, is very, very important. And for me, that's where I devote all of my time now is to making sure I'm across all aspects of being a man, I'm well prepared, and that I find gives me the most fulfillment in my life.
I think mentioning things you've said, I think one of the things when I was young, when you guys also were young at 18, I think one of the hardest is learning a skill or having the skill to make money. Because nowadays everyone wants things quick, and we all want things quick. And I think it becomes very hard mentally to know that you're 18 and you're not gonna get money until 28. You know, mentally it's gonna hit you. So I think, as you said, having those buckets and know that you can start with one and keep working and knowing that the other one will come in a bit, but I can work on fitness. I was working at the same time, for example, English is my second language. So I'm still not happy on how I express myself when it comes into this podcasting or even will be on a conversation, but I'm getting there. But the only reason I'm getting there is because I'm 25 now. When I was 18, I was at the gym, and instead of listening to music, I was listening to podcasts. So I would listen a lot to Andy Frisella. I don't know if you guys know who he is. And that was my guy that I actually like, about how he does the 75-day hard challenge of like going into fitness, but at the same time I would listen to his podcasting. So that thing slowly converted, and I will get obsessed. I knew every day, and I think every single day, because now I'm obsessed with podcasts. So I'm watching them, right? From 18 to 25, I think I've watched every single day a podcast. So now, naturally, this is not my talent, but slowly you get there. Now, if I wanted to do a podcast at 19, I would have freezed for sure. Like I wouldn't even know how to speak or what to say or how to reply to you, because it's my second language. So I think it's also very important to start on a point, as you said, fitness, build your confidence, build social status around men too, you know, and then also with women, but then start at the same time. If you're not good about speaking, it's also very important. How you communicate, how you tell your vision of the company, how all these things are very important. So I would say you can work on 2-3 of these bucket lists at the same time, knowing that the money will come a bit later, we're still working on those skills. So I think that's completely on point.
Yeah, super important. I think there's a lot of they've got one facet sorted, but none of the others. And it just doesn't lead to good fulfillment more than anything. When a guy feels that way, he's got money, but no respect from his girlfriend. You see that all the time in Dubai. Girls just with him for his money. It's not true. This like idea of true love or really true respect is what you should be aiming for from your woman, in my opinion.
So in this day and age, there's a very big hustle culture of like give up on sleep, you know, put it all in, go into a monk mode and all of this, like forget your friends, forget your family, go all in on business. And naturally, so that will lead to results. You're going to excel if you go all in on something. But you're more of an advocate of being well-rounded, and in service of being well-rounded, do you feel like because you're focusing yourself on so many things, on let's say 7 buckets, that it leads to the effect of you're not excelling in any, like you're good at all but not excelling in any? How do you combat that?
I feel like in business, if you were to split yourself across 7 different businesses, you'd have that exact issue. But all of these feed into each other. Because you're in shape and you feel good about yourself, you're better at business, you're better at women. Maybe women, obviously, like if you put a lot of time into the women bucket, which I have personally, you end up good with women, but it will slow you down in other areas of your life because you're spending time with women. It's maybe not so productive. But I'm probably now better equipped to and have in my own life create relationships that I actually want, which in turn make me happier. Because if you're heartbroken, if you're lonely and heartbroken, often you'll find it a lot harder to work. I've got a great support network around me. So I think in regards to these, if you're splitting your attention across 7 businesses, you're going to fail. But if you're splitting your attention on building a physique, being combat ready, focusing on business, your social skills, they feed into each other and you become a man that people want to do business with. People see you, they respect you, and you end up making more money. So that's how I feel about those specific skills.
Me and Alex were having a discussion on the way here, specifically for yourself of for example, Dario, you took in certain ways the easier route because you didn't have to put yourself out there. You could actually just manage your team, you could still be with your family, and no one can throw stones at you. You just got to do the hard work, and you know it'll lead to results. So it was input, output. Whereas for yourself, you're putting your reputation on the line, your name on the line, your face on the internet, You don't know who is watching, and also because you are quite a polarizing person, a lot of people love you and a lot of people probably hate you. And you also don't know what people are going through. They might be going through something in their life. They might be going through depression. They might not relate to you in the same way. And they're going to throw stones at you. And they're going to make, you're going through for business, you're trying to excel and you're doing things for yourself and trying to help others. I think you're doing a good thing out there. But you're going to get naturally hate for the polarity that you have. How do you stop getting discouraged and thinking, okay, let me jump into a business that is more brick and mortar, let me do something more established? Why do you continue to stay in the online sphere for, it seems like all of the buckets that you have, you're putting it online and using the online space as a tool?
How do you deal with it?
For me, I went through a period of when I first got into YouTube of having to deal with that, and I'll explain the story to you. I became very stressed because I was starting to build a business, and everything that my business did was solely reliant on how many views I got or how good my videos were being received. And I was watching them come out every day. And if you're a YouTuber or you post on YouTube, you get a ranking, your 1 to 10 ranking on YouTube. And I was obsessed with this. I'd refresh every minute. And that was just, I was a very stressed person for the first 150 days of my YouTube journey, because I was posting every day and I was staying up all night fucking watching the statistics come through, because it was to my pocket, and I was reading comments and I would get discouraged and I would have people's opinions start to sort of take a hit on me. And I think that is purely part of the journey. That only happened the first 150 days for me. And after that, I recognized, I was like, okay, this isn't making me unhappy. What happens if I just don't read it? What happens if I just leave it to do its thing? I'll make the video, put it out, but I'm not reading comments, I'm not replying to comments, and I'm not looking at the analytics until 2 days down the line. And for me, it just solved the problem. So I actually don't see or hear any of the stuff that people say about me negatively unless it happens in my real life. All my Instagram's love anyway, and that's probably the only thing I look at. People at Instagram DM me, it's all love. So in my head, it's like people love the stuff. The comments and the negative stuff that comes through shorts, which you get a lot of, if you start doing short form content, people will comment badly on that because they're not invested into your channel.
That's what I've heard. Like in terms of TikTok, these platforms, is like a lot of hate on the comments. I'm not saying to you specifically, I mean in general.
Mate,
that's what people say.
100% right. It does. It comes from those things. It comes from these platforms, and I just don't read it. If I do read it, it can put me in a bad mood. But for me, I don't read it at all, because I know in my heart, I play to my strengths. My strengths are personality. This is the kind of life I've always wanted to live. This is my dream job. I've always felt like a performer. There is no other way for me. I could start a different business. I wouldn't be happy in it. For me, I have to be growing and evolving. YouTube and the course systems and the network that we've created, it provides an outlet for me to constantly grow and help other guys grow in the same way. So for me, there's nothing anybody could ever say that would stop me doing what I'm doing now. And I'll continue to be me, and I'll make mistakes along the way. I'll say things I'm not meant to say. And I'm not going to say sorry, because I'm just a young guy growing up. And I feel like one of the biggest problems in the world, people are afraid to fail. People are afraid to just say one thing bad and get cancelled. I don't mind. I've come to terms that we all die one day. So none of this really matters all that much, because one day no one's going to remember any of us. So as long as I'm having fun every day and having a good time, and I feel like I'm giving back to the world, then I'll do and say as I please. And that freed me really. And now I feel very free in everything that I do.
Beautifully said. Jack, I want to ask a question. So a year from now, hypothetically, what would a financial year look like for you? Like, what would be an achievement? I made this amount in a year.
Well, this year the plan is to do $1 million this year profit, $1 million profit this year, which we'll do. I'm pretty certain we'll do. And that's with the new elites, our network of entrepreneurs. And next year's plan is 10 million, so a 10x.
Okay, so the hybrid between the two, let's put it at 5. And there's a question I asked you the other day. Iman, a friend of all of ours.
Yeah.
I saw you were training with him the other day, doing a bit of boxing, and I guess he's still new to it. But he's got resources. He's got the best team around him, chef and so forth, that he can excel very quickly. And obviously, you have time in boxing, but he'll catch up. And I imagine one day you could be in the ring together. I know he wants to fight. You love to fight. And let's say you set up like a entrepreneur fight, like the YouTube boxing scene, and they set up a fight, and Iman comes to you behind the scenes and says, look, I'm a very wealthy man, and your target is 5 million in a year. Listen, my brand is so big, like I cannot lose a fight or look bad on my reputation. I'll slide you 5 million. You just got to take a dive. On the 4th round, take a dive. What are you saying?
Well, for me, and in my head, like only I know this because it's only going on in my brain. But I like Iman. I think he's a great guy, and it was good to box with, and I think he'll be a fantastic fighter, and I love everything he's done. But in my head, Iman's the same as me. There's no reason in my head that I'm not going to be greater than Iman, and I think it'd be a disjustice to myself to ever say that I'm not going to be as good. So he might have the step ahead now because he's been in the game longer. But it's only a matter of time in my mind before the world sees what I already see in my mind, which is that I'm meant for this same level of greatness. So for me, I would never take the money to take a dive because it's my justice and liberty. But I would, if you wanted to, happily fight him if it came to that, because I'll happily spar any of my brothers. We spar all the time. I'd happily fight Iman if we wanted to do that, and the best man wins. And I wouldn't be particularly upset if he won. If he was the better man, I'd congratulate him on that. But I couldn't take the money for it because in my head the money's coming anyway. The money's unlimited. We can make it. It's nothing really. So
the abundance mindset.
It's what's in here matters way more than a few million.
What do you intend to do to, let's say you achieve the million, and I'm sure you will because you're on a very good momentum and a good trajectory, and I see you doing good things. But from 1 million to 10 million is a big jump.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of intention. It's not just a natural progression of keeping going with the flow. What kind of things are you putting in place that would help you achieve a bigger milestone?
The main things that have helped me go from sort of 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K, 50, and now we're at 60K. In the last year, I've been in business a year, is your team realising that you cannot do it on your own. So you've got to have the people around you. For me, I know exactly what my place in the brand is, and that's as the face, as the ideas man, and as the leader, the head of the tribe, the head of the group, sort of figuring out the direction and the ideas and where we go and making sure the world sees the brand. My job now is to find behind the scenes who are the people that can do the business parts that allow us to make that kind of money. And we're already putting the foundations in now, for example, getting proper accounts set up in Dubai, getting tax sorted here. It's all foundational stuff that I'm putting in to achieve those goals in the future. But yeah, the main thing actually in achieving 10 million will be growing the brand and growing presence. Because when you can monetize attention, if we can 10x the size of the brand, if we can 10x the size of the channel, when I do 1 million and then we 10x the size of the channel, I think we can do 10 mil. It's just your income rises in proportion with your audience. So for me, it will be doing crazy things, saying crazy things, doing stuff around the world that people are interested in, and has the undertones of becoming the man you want to be. That's the idea for my brand, is testing myself consistently, growing as a man, hopefully inspiring other people to do the same thing.
You know, of what you were saying, we're not going to speak about trading because I don't want to bore people. So that side of money, we're not going to speak about it. But on the business related, we grew a business from 0 to 7 figures in a year. And something that is kind of difficult when it comes into the info product space, I will say we speak a lot with people that have made like multiple 8 figures or 7 figures consistently, is how scalable is your business when it comes into a customer experience. The last year and a half, we've been very heavy on it, like building stuff on the back end. And I'll be very interested to know if you thought about this process or what do you think you should do? Because something that was hard for us is kind of easy to maintain 50, 100 people, 300 people happy. Once you start reaching like 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K, 5K people, which will make you scale your business to the 10-figure mark, that's when it gets difficult, when it comes into have like a proper system in place that actually makes people have the experience that they deserve for the money they're paying. That's what we've been thinking a lot. Now we got into a system, but I'll be interested to know if you more or less think about this.
Yeah, I think about it. I think about it all the time. And the reason I feel like my network is different. So our network, the New Elite, is a family. It's a brotherhood. And we promote from inside, leadership from the inside. And it's not because it's a business. It's not for money. It's because they want to help their brothers. They've received so much value from the network. The whole network is helping each other. They're doing business together. They're keeping everything inside the network, helping each other grow. And so what we plan to do is just give out more leadership and abilities to the guys that prove themselves, that help us control the masses as the group grows, as the network grows, and just keeping an eye on everything, putting people in the right leadership positions. And these are people, you have to be very careful to promote people for the right reasons. So some people want to be promoted for money. like you said before, they don't have a lot of money, and you give them money and they change and they don't want to help people anymore. They just wanted to help for the money. One of the things that I looked for explicitly is who are the guys in our network that just help for the sake of helping. They help already. They got money. They don't care. They're already helping people. They're the people that become leadership. They're the people that I'll put my trust into and I feel will grow the network, because they're not doing it for money. So nothing can change. You can give them as much money as they want. They're still going to help people inside the group. So there'll be a lot of decisions I need to make around who gets promoted inside and becomes leadership. But I plan to create just an incredible network of guys and have actually physical locations around the world, places where guys can meet up and do business together, sports teams around the world. Basically an accelerator for somebody who's a young man. You want to get into business, you want to do something, you can join a community and you can accelerate and you can make it to the next level. If you're doing 10K a month, you've got guys around you that take you to 100K. And it's not just about money, it's about speaking to older guys that have good relationships with women, that have not been screwed over by divorces and stuff like that. If you're a younger guy and you've not even been with a woman yet, speaking to guys that can tell you stuff about the bedroom and teach you how to be a man, and guys that encourage you to fight and build you into this superior man.
Very interesting.
Just to touch on your question there, when you're saying how you're going to deliver the same experience across many customers, clearly your systems are going to be in place, but the thing is your message needs to be translated for your staff members. So you need to recruit people who have the same values as you, who believe in the message and believe in the product that you're delivering. Because if they believe in it, they believe in what you provide and you're kind of preaching, then they're going to do the same thing. So you can't ever give your attention to 5,000 people unless, on a mass scale. It's very difficult to scale past up to those numbers. So if you have a team around you that's got the same values, they'll deliver the same message and the same experience. And I had dinner with a couple of the guys the other night, and that was what I asked them. One of their main things that allowed them to scale to those numbers was hiring well. Mm-hmm. The main thing was just having the staff members that had the same vision and ensuring that you get the same people. Sometimes I believe it's about the person more than what they've achieved in their past life. They may, when you've hired someone, for example, they might not have had the opportunity from a previous employer to show what they're capable of. I've got a young guy who works for me now, he's 21, 22. He worked for a tiling company before, and he's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. He's one of the lifelines of my business, as all the other staff members. But if I had not given him the chance to express himself and go down the routes of learning new things and just doing it without blocking him, he wouldn't be the person he is today. So the same things need to be with your staff members and the people that you're going to recruit into your team as you grow your network. They've got to believe in your vision more than just what you're getting paid, because money isn't enough to motivate people anymore.
So Dario, you've achieved something very, very exceptional, and you deserve your flowers for that, which is by yourself. Obviously you had mentors and a team around you, but as a lone wolf, you reached an earning power of top 0.01% for our age, and it's amazing to see. And now it could be very easy, and if a lot of people were in your situation, they'll be like, let me just keep this up. Let me just stay in Derby. Let me just keep this caravan business conversion kit going. But you've actually decided to take a leap, and that is to kind of automate it, which is impressive in itself, and then actually leave the country, start, maybe taking a step back to go forward, meeting new people. You've come to Dubai, you've moved to Thailand, you've met Jack. You're taking a lot of new steps that were probably, a lot of people are looking around you, maybe family and friends, of like, what is he doing all of this for? What is your plans with this? What kind of goals do you have?
To achieve greatness. That's it. That's what I've always believed in myself. And a lot of my family, my close family, know this. I've always thought like this. I've never had a doubt in my mind that I will get to the point where I want to be in my life. So the caravan business and what it is, that's just a stepping stone. I've learned now what is required to run a business, to earn good money and how to structure things, etc. And now I'm just going to use that and translate that skill and that knowledge into the next period. I know that I can only scale that to a certain point, but what I've gained from it is I've learned the knowledge. I could fail now. I wouldn't care, because I've made the money. I've set myself up in the point where I've got the knowledge that allows me to grow a new business. I know that's always going to be a limiting factor in that kind of style of business. My eyes have been opened to the online world now, and I know the capabilities, how fast it is, how easy it is to scale an online business, what the capabilities are in terms of the money you can make, and also just the impact you can have on people's lives. And I just want to go back onto a question, onto a topic that we spoke about earlier about Jack's negative comments on his shorts. I've read through them before, and it annoys me actually sometimes reading his comments on his shorts, because a lot of people have not actually spent any time with Jack. I've spent a lot of time with Jack. They've not spent time around the group, and they've put these negative comments out there. I'm a testament for what Jack's created on his YouTube channel, because November last year I was in a very dark place and wasn't enjoying my life at all. I watched one of his YouTube channels, the YouTube videos, and I booked a flight to Thailand, and my life has flipped 180 in every way. My mental state, my physical capabilities, and that's all from just hanging around with Jack and his friends and his group out there. So there's no way, when I read them, I think you're just stupid. You've got nothing, because you never even experienced it. So it's like you can't talk about something until you've gone out there. And I guarantee you, half these people, if they spent some time, they would realize, I wish I never made those kind of comments.
You should be proud of this, brother.
Oh, yeah, incredibly proud of Dario as well. It's been crazy to see his growth since we've known each other. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dario's one of those people. He's done it absolutely perfectly. If anyone wants to know how you network with somebody and get into a new circle, Dario's done the work before he came to Thailand. He's built himself into a respectable man. So when we first met each other and you were in New Elite, and then we bumped into each other in the gym, Dario's then a guy at a stage in his life where I can understand him and speak to him, because we've got similar journeys. And Dario's a bit older than me, and he's actually got things that he can say to me that I understand and that help me massively. And you did help me with building the New Elite and the business that we have now. And I think for young guys that so many people will message me and ask to sit down for a coffee, or they meet you straight away, but they have absolutely no way of building a connection with you because they put themselves way under you become a fan. There's like a fan dynamic. And just for anyone listening that maybe is thinking that, it's your job to do the work now, because one day there'll be a time in your life where you get an opportunity and you're either the man for the job or you're not. And at this time in my life, the reason we're traveling together is because we're similar guys. Dario's already done the work and we're at the same point in our lives, so he's the man for the job. We've ended up traveling together, becoming good friends, which will end up being an amazing opportunity for the both of us. But the only reason it's there is because he's already done the work and became the man.
I would like to ask you a question, because you mentioned greatness, or a lot of people say success. So I would love to know what's your definition of success or greatness, because for some people might be just having a family, some people will be 10K a month. So what's your exact definition, what you meant about greatness or success?
Because financially, you'd
for you, your personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I think my idea of greatness is having an enjoyable life. My decision between this and forming this is forming a lifestyle, that is not based on being located in one place forever. So I can have the ability to travel wherever I want to see. We live in a generation now where we can see the whole world. So why would we not take the opportunity to experience all the many experiences and all the cultures around the world that there is to do and see? So it's having a lifestyle that you can basically be located anywhere in the world and you can operate your business from, doing things I'm passionate about every single day. So driving fast cars, motorbikes, adrenaline sports, doing cool stuff, doing expeditions, just doing all the things that most people, like 99% of people in the world, won't ever get the chance to experience. And I don't want to go through my life and not have experienced these many things. So it's basically, how can I build my life and my lifestyle that will allow me to do that? Having a nice family. I want to have a big family. I'm Italian, so I want to have lots of kids and I want to have that kind of Italian life. And I've always had this dream, and a lot of people say this when they meet, you always want to live everywhere. Well, I want to have a house in loads of different places where I can go, right, I'm going to go to my house in Italy, and I'm going to go in the hills in Tuscany, and then down to my dad's place in Bari. And then when I have a house in America, maybe in Montana or something, where I can ride horses, just cool stuff, things that not most people can do because they don't work hard enough to get there. So my idea of greatness is just basically having an enjoyable life, to the point where I know I'm happy every single day. I've not got the stress of getting up to go to work every single day at a certain time, no one telling me what to do, and basically having just enjoyable life, guys. That for me is greatness.
I want to touch on the topic, as you brought it up, of networking, and it's an interesting one because there's very different beliefs. And a lot of your business and the things you're providing for people, and also things you're doing yourself, is pendant on networking. And I can see now you're intentionally putting a lot more effort into it, just by flying to Thailand, now flying to Dubai, where previously you're in Derby, and I know how it is. My city, Canterbury, there's not much going on. And to find someone that I can relate to and resonate with, that is my age, that is doing similar things or a similar mindset, is very hard to do. So I was always of the mindset myself of, I don't want to put any time or effort or money into networking. because if I just work on myself, do the work, as you said, people will come to me. And I don't know if that was a bit of a naive thought, because who's going to come to me? Probably no one. But as you said, you keep doing the pre-work, and then when you do on off chance meet someone, you're ready to connect and not look like a fan or just look like an acquaintance, or that was a nice shisha we went for, and then it never leads to anything. So of course, having that foundation there is important. The better you are as a man, the more fruitful networking will become. Inevitably, though, there is an art of networking, and let's assume you've done the pre-work and you've reached a level where you can now hold your own in a networking scenario. What would you say are traits or skills of networking that you can take the most out of an opportunity of meeting someone?
Yeah, the main thing I'd say to focus on, because I network with a lot of people now through the New Elite, so I'll meet new guys when we're in Thailand. Guys fly out, they're in the network, and I'll go meet them. I meet most of the guys, and the ones that I remain friends with, and the guys that you meet them once but then you probably don't hang out with them so much, is consistently talking business and asking business questions. And maybe this is just me personally, but if somebody comes straight to me and, for example, we meet out at the beach club and we're chilling, I don't want somebody to come and start asking me questions about like how I've grown a YouTube channel or how I do courses or what website I'm using to host courses and stuff, because it's boring to me. So you've got to remember when you're networking with somebody to be somebody they want to be around. Networking, you're just becoming friends. That's what it is. Networking, you're becoming friends. You're becoming someone, so when they're doing something and they want someone to hang out with or come with them, you're someone they think, okay, I like that guy. And the way you can do that is you ask someone questions about themselves, but find very quickly what they're actually interested in. Not what you want to know, not the information you want to extract from them, like stuff about business, for example, because we can feel that. You can feel that straight away. Okay, you just want value about this stuff, so boring for me. But if you figure out, like, maybe I'm super interested in World War II, for example, and I say something, you pick up on it, and then you dive deep into that, and we end up having a really great conversation about something I'm interested in. That's somebody that they'll then remember that and they'll want to see you again. So just remember that when you're networking, is like talk 10% business, 90% just interests, girls, fun.
What about for the guy that is, so you've kind of assumed that they are able to fly out and kind of end up in a scenario where they can be at a table with you. But what about if you're a kid in Derby and you don't have the financial resources, you're working on yourself, but for now you only have online means, sending DMs to people. For example, I get DMs all the time of like, people are giving not even no value and sometimes not even polite. Like they won't say, hey, how are you? And they'll just get to the point of what they want. And sometimes I've even had outrageous messages of like, hey, I'm thinking of flying to Dubai for 2 weeks. Do you mind if I spend every day with you? I don't know you. Like, yeah. I'm sure you're a great guy, but like, who's going to say yes to that?
Sounds like a gay thing or something.
And no one's really ever going to say yes to that. So of course there's an approach and a methodology of just how to open the conversation. Then, for example, giving value to them, the things that such a how would you recommend it to someone in the online space?
There's so much knowledge online now that this is inexcusable to say that you don't know something about a subject to be able to make money out of it. So you need to do the work first. You can't go up to people and ask them direct questions, because it's probably already out there on the internet anyway. So you should know the answer to what you're kind of asking. If you want to network with the right people, you need to go into the situation and not expect anything from them. I've never go into a conversation with something and say, I'm going to expect something. I just want to get to know people. And eventually you'll get to know that person. If you vibe with that person and you'll connect with them. And then you can do business with them if you want to at a late date. You don't have, when I go into a networking situation, I don't go with the view I'm going to do business with this person. I just want to get to know, because then maybe I'm going to be in Dubai next year and say, hello, do you want to go for a drink? Or do you want to go for a shisha, for example? So if you go into that way with not expecting anything, then you'll be a bit more easy with each other. And then also as well, just don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. So you never know who you're talking to. You never know what's going on with their business. You never know who that. So you can sometimes, a lot of people judge each other from their looks, for example. But I've met people out there that you would never expect what they do and how much money they make and how successful they are. So, but going back to your point, it's just inexcusable to not have the knowledge first. So don't ask silly questions. Don't ask silly things. And if they want to network with these people, there's going to be opportunities when you can go to a meetup, for example, where they're doing talks, and you could just say, hey, really love your content. If you ever need any help, just drop me a thing. I can do something for free. I got a guy inbox me the day. I'll do your copywriting for free. Like that's that's just a simple way. Like, I'll just test it out. If it works, it works. But if you're giving value, give value to the person first, and then maybe you'll get something back. But if you don't, just don't go in there expecting anything from me personally. So
there's something to add what you said too, and what you were saying. When we were smoking a shisha, they were speaking about this, and I think there's two things that I think they're very important. Is one, have something going on in your life, because if you have something going on, you're truly having genuine relationships, because you're not gonna expect this meeting to be my payout day, because I know I'm gonna try to get a tag on Instagram for you to then, and I'm selling whatever. And so get something going on, that's for sure. And then always listen more than you speak, and then ask correct questions, as you were saying. So for example, even though you don't have a business or something going on, then you have to go full ham on fitness and podcasting, because podcasts or listen to entrepreneurs are gonna make you open your mind on what sort of questions should be asked. And then you're listening, and I might not have a business, but if I'm listening correctly to you, I'm not expecting anything from you, but I'm asking correct questions. You're going to think I'm an interesting person. Therefore, the book now is open, or the relationship is open. But 100%, like, never expect something from the beginning, because then it's not genuine. Then it's like, I want to take something out for you. And anyone that has something going on can really see who's up to that. Like, you'll have a conversation after 10 minutes. They'll be like, hey, by the way, can you do this for me? Or can you do... It's always very aggressive. It doesn't work. And it's just to add what you guys were mentioning.
Yeah, one of the best guys that has networked with me, who's actually so much younger. He's only 15 years old. He's called Oliver. He's called Oliver Nixon. Shout out Oliver. He's on YouTube as well. But the way he got my attention was he made a YouTube video doing one of my challenges. And I did this 7-day mental toughness challenge, which was insane. Like, it included waking up in the middle of the night, going and doing push-ups, sleeping on the floor with no covers and stuff. And I specifically said in the video, like, if you're under 18, don't do this, because I don't want anyone's mum getting in trouble. And he made a video where he played that bit at the start. And then he pops up and he's like, I'm 15 years old, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And he did this video and he made the whole thing, and he completed the challenge, which was really, really hard. And then he just sent it to me on Instagram, and it impressed me. And as somebody who's a creator and you put time into your work, and someone actually listens to it and takes the time to make a video about something you've done, that's a big sort of, it's an ego boost, because you're like, that someone's actually listened and done what I said. So for him, but we speak now. He's the only guy under 18 inside the new elite, and he was allowed in for that exact reason, because I could see promise in him. I was like, we have an over 18s policy, and at the time I was like, mate, look, you can come inside, you're obviously going to be a cool guy, and this kid's going places, you can tell. And that was just, he did the work.
Yep. And creativity.
Yeah,
creativity to reach you. Like, don't think about sending just a random message. Make a strategy, make a plan of like, okay, how can I reach you? If you are at this level, I know you get a lot of DMs, you might not see my message. How can I actually get to you on not a fun way, as you mentioned, but like creative? And then when you see it, you're going to be like, I value the way you come into me, because we read this stuff. We all read, like, if someone comes to me on that creative way, I want to be like, okay, you go in places. Yeah. So I want to be, or have you around me. Maybe I need someone on the future to work or do something. So yeah.
I would say just don't be a dork as well. Don't be a weird guy. Don't be a weird guy. Just get your social skills up and be someone cool to be around, because no one wants to hang around with dorks. So, just be a cool guy, and then you might get accepted.
And never ask how to stop wanking. That's the most common question on the fucking internet. I get asked that about 3 or 4 times a day, and that's a very simple. I'll give you the answer right now. Cut both your hands off.
That's the only way. No.
That's the only way you can stop doing that. So that's what you should do. But it's questions like that, man, it's just insane that you'd ever want to network with someone opening up with something that you wouldn't generally speak about at the table together.
For networking, it's a very interesting one, and we've never had the dynamic of fans, which I imagine you do. So for someone that's coming across you, they obviously need to be intentional of not ending up in that box. For us, I found more like I don't want to end up in the friend box, because you have people that they're a great guy, you actually enjoy their company, but you don't have anything beyond that. You'll call them up on a weekend, let's hang out, but you're never going to call them up when you have a problem of like, I need advice. So knowing that I felt like that with other people, I'm also now more intentional. How can I combat that so I don't end up in that box for someone else that I potentially see something with? And in aid of doing that, I've always thought, okay, well, the best thing you can do is always give. And that can be give value, give something, give a positive feeling, uplifting feeling, these kind of giving things. But at times a lot of people have taken that kind of messaging and maybe not applied it correctly, because then they'll come and message me and say, hey, I'll do this for you for free, as the example you gave. I would actually say maybe that's not always the best advice, because I don't know you, so I don't know how well you do it. And yes, it's free, but you might do a bad job at it, and it's going to cost me more than if I just paid someone to do it. And you're not going to stand out, especially in this day and age. Everybody's messaging like, hey, I'll do your ads, hey, I'll do this, hey, I'll do that. Then again, you're not going to do that standing out thing. For example, for the online stuff, I actually don't know what the best approach would be. Maybe you guys can advise better. But for in-person, first of all, you have to be of accolades yourself, so someone can actually respect you. Without respect, you're not going to convince them with any mind tricks of doing anything. But the first thing, you have to be presentable, and that comes down to a lot of things: how you dress, hygiene, like simple things of, do you smell good, have you brushed your teeth, have you clipped your nails, are you dressed presentably, because the way you dress is going to be symbolic of your character. If you're coming out with chains and diamonds, that someone's going to judge you for it. You can hate on it and say, this is my individuality, but that's the world. If you're coming out and wearing a certain type of shoes, you're categorized. If you're coming out and wearing a plain shirt versus a polo shirt versus a button shirt, you're sending a signal through that. So, your image is obviously going to make a difference. And then also, once you've made yourself presentable, you've made yourself able to give value, now you're at a dinner table. I think the best thing you can do then is, as Alex said, you got to be a listener, and you got to identify quickly what's their problem. What are they suffering with? And what is a challenge they're facing right now? And then your job is to provide your opinion on that, and give them your advice, and find a topic that you have some sort of authority, some kind of knowledge in, so that you can say, hey man, I've been through this, and actually this worked out for me, or if I was in your shoes, I would do something like this. Now at the end of that conversation, you didn't ask for anything, and he's not having any bad feelings, but the next day he'll remember, yeah, he did say this, and I'm thinking about it, it does make a lot of sense, and maybe he solves that problem. Now you've actually networked, and you're not just a friend that's going to be called on the weekend. It always has to be value driven.
And something you point out very importantly, and more when you're networking with people above you, is there's always an ego in there. As a man, that you've achieved certain things, you've been through issues, so never be like, I think you should be doing this, because then it's bad. It's always, as you said, from a personal look, I did this happened to me, like my help.
It's very true.
So that's always comes with a genuine approach, rather than if I sit down in a table, I don't know you guys, and it's like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing it. You're gonna be like, look man, I've done pretty good for myself alone. Who are you to come and tell me what to do? So I think always comes with like the point that you said of like the opinion of like, oh, I did this and this worked for me. Might not work for you, but this is what I did. And then he's gonna think about it. Like, oh shit, this was helpful.
So it's probably the number one most important skill that attributes to success is networking. And we can all get so much better at it. But I would say at this table, you guys are incredible networkers.
Wakar you've done a fantastic job just by the fact that you managed to sort our podcast out with Justin and SRB last week. That's a fantastic. You gave value straight away. You helped us out in a situation where we were in a completely different city we're not used to. We don't know who to contact. So you can be the guy, and you've mastered that already. And look what's come of it. You've made 2 great contacts. We've introduced you to other people. We've had great times, and that's just a natural thing. And I think people with networking as well, they've got too much. I'd say they want it too quickly. You have to understand that you have to build relationships with people over a long time. You can't expect something from someone straight away. So don't go into it with too much speed. Just to let the relationship nurture itself over time and let it be natural.
That's very important. I mean, when did we meet? We met in January, but not really spoken. And then just back in Dubai, popped up. You just popped up to one of my stories because I said we were looking for, I think, either a videographer or a podcast studio. And then it was sorted. And then we've ended up hanging out a lot more this time, build the relationship again. It's just a natural progression of things. It's not all going to happen so fast.
And as a result, thank you for both hopping on the show. It's been a fun episode.
Very welcome.
I want to end with one last question, as a personal interest of mine, because I don't have a set opinion myself. I'm still figuring it out. I'll start with you, Dario. What is more important to you as a driving force? Are you more driven by inspiration, hope, want to achieve something and driving towards something, or are you more fear-driven, or you have demons that you're running away from, or insecurities, or a chip on your shoulder you want to prove, or a tough situation in your life, maybe some mental health things, or a driving force can be inspiration or desperation. So I'm interested for you, what is more strong inside yourself?
I think for me personally, it's a mixture of both. And I know it sounds like it's a generic answer, but it is genuinely is a mixture of both. I've got things I want to prove to people, That's a driving force for me. I've got ambition for myself and the idea of the lifestyle that I want to live. So that's a driving force for me. There's people I want to make proud. I want to make my family proud of what I've created. And I know they're proud of me already, but I want to make them prouder. So it's a mixture of all different things, and also just feeling confident in myself, knowing I've got to the point in my life where I can say to myself, I've made it. I don't want to get to the old age of 50, 60, 70 years old and regret things. I didn't take chances. I didn't take the opportunity to put into action the knowledge and the gift I feel I've been given of being on this planet. So I want to make sure I can maximize that potential and not regret anything when I get to an older age. So for me personally, it's a mixture of both.
How about yourself, Jack?
So my driving force is looking after the people that can't do what I can do in my life. So I'd say that's probably, what were the two, inspiration or desperation?
Yep.
I'm probably inspiration driven because I've had desperation in my life. I've been at bottom and I can deal with that. I'm not afraid of going there. But the thing for me is, like, some people can't do what you can do. Some people can't get up early and work their ass off at a business and be online and do things, and they don't have the advantages that you have. So for me, it's providing to the people in my life that might not do the things that I'm going to do. So that's my inspiration for just becoming the best that I can be.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you very much for giving us your time. I know you're busy men. And hopefully we'll do something again soon, maybe not online, but we'll stay in touch and we'll
could play zombies or something.
Play zombies or something.
Pastime. That and meeting rotters.
Meeting rotters.
No, we didn't bring up rotters, that's good.
We just got out of that. Cut there, cut.
Gentlemen, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you
very much,
It's been a
guys. Much
pleasure.
appreciated. It's been a pleasure.